Hello, everyone. Welcome back to session number 4 of Mapping Hour. Thanks for joining us again. Here we are back in the Mapping Hour. Once again, you can reach us at mappinghour@esri.com if you need to get in touch about anything. And you can see us at esriurl.com/mappinghour. Last reminder, because this is the session that begins the rest of the experience, you need to have a login to do the things that we're doing today. And there are lots of ways that you could have acquired a login. You've probably already taken care of that. But just in case, if you need to get a login for the Mapping Hour section, you can do it through filling out a survey at esriurl.com/mappinghour and saying, yeah, I need a login in there. Last time, we had some great things going on, some fabulous GeoInquiries content. We took a look through the worksheets and adding a screenshot and a couple of other hacks in there, and especially paying attention to classification and symbolization, making the map show what you really want it to show. And thinking about, boy, this is such a great map now. I just wish I could do something with it. And that's what we want to get to today. We want to get into this whole notion of, great, as you're doing this, you want to start making this show what it is that you really want to show, and do this with the maps and do this with the 3D scenes as well. Saving the content that is created by other people and by you, sharing it, and working with some short URLs, or what we also think of as the real magic in here, item details. And we'll get into some of that magic at the last part of this. So to begin, I'm going to call up my web browser. So here we are now in my web browser. And we're looking at a map that I made some years ago, and it's about the last 30 days of earthquakes. And notice that you can tell it is, because as I click on any one of these, we've got an earthquake that happened about 2 weeks ago, maybe. And so this is this is the last month of earthquakes, the last 30 days. So it works nicely with some of the content from the last episode. And this is a really interesting map. But if I prepare a map like this, boy, I really want to, I want to give it to somebody so that they can do some things with it. Well, what will they do with it? Well, they'll explore it. They'll look at it. There's a lot of information in here to see, because this is this map that has 2 layers. Well, the magic is that you saw yesterday, hey, we can work with these data tables and the pop-ups with the contents from there. I got a lot of extra stuff in here that I don't necessarily want people to be working with. And these 2 layers are symbolized differently. So it's the same layer twice, and I've just symbolized one layer showing magnitude. There's the legend. And then the other layer showing depth. And you can also show the legend just by clicking on the name in the contents panel. So I can show them both this way. And I could move them up and down, but if I'm going to give this to somebody, it's not going to be as nice an experience as if I'm there walking them through it. And it would be really cool if I could create a presentation somehow. Well, you can do that. And in the organization in which I made this, I created a presentation out of it. I'm now logged into the K-12 organization, and I don't own this in this login that I have in here. So I can't save it into my contents in here. So what I really want to do is to open up this presentation. So keep in mind, this is a map of the recent quakes. Here is an ArcGIS Online map viewer presentation. The map viewer allows you to put together a display of your content. Anything that was in that map, you can create a presentation. Wow, you can even annotate it here. Presentation built using the last month of earthquakes map. Use the tools below. Oh yeah, there's a little panel down here. I've got tools. I've got slides, and I've got a forward and back arrow. Look at that. It takes me forward and takes me back. I see all the maps are interactive. Click, hold the map, and wiggle it. So it's just like zoom in and zoom out. I've got my zoom in tools here and zoom out. And I can double click on a place. But where the heck did those earthquakes go? They're not here. Oh, then move ahead to see the layers. If I move back, will the layers show up? No, the layers don't show up. I move ahead. Aha! Quakes by magnitude. I want to smallerize this a little bit here. Quakes by magnitude. Pan, zoom, and click on the dots. Click on the dots. So here's something from March 22 of 2020. See, I only have 5 pieces of information here. Latitude, longitude, date and time, depth, magnitude. Cool. Let's see, got a question here. Bigger dots equals what? Bigger dots equals what? I'm gonna go for bigger quakes maybe. Try the legend button, top right. Oh, up in the top right, I got a legend button here. Ah, cool. Does it go away? Okay, I can turn it on, turn it off there. Okay. So bigger dots equals bigger quakes. Okay, so here's a big dot one, that's 5.3, and I can work my way through here. Pretty interesting. Okay, let me just see, what have I got? What's next? Let's go to the next one. That one's zoomed out too far, so I want to zoom in a little bit here. Quakes by depth. Dark equals shallow. Light equals deep. So the lighter ones are deeper. The darker ones are closer to the surface. Okay, so they're more intense. They're more intense. They're darker, closer to the surface. Farther away. And let's see. I've got a legend here too. Cool. All right. So this is valuable. This is really interesting, but what am I supposed to do with it? Well, let's just go ahead here. Oh, now I get a question. Is there a pattern in the Aleutians? So that's these islands out here. Is there a pattern? Can you see a trench and mountains? I don't know. Let me zoom in here. Do I see a trench? There's the trench. And can I see a trench and mountains? Yeah, I see the mountains right there. What caused the patterns of quakes? Well, the dark ones seem to be generally closer to the trench, and the lighter ones seem to be generally closer into the mountains. That's the extension of the coastal range mountains that's right there. And I'll say that the darker ones are near the trench and the lighter colored ones are underneath the mountains. Is there a similar pattern here? Ooh. Let's see, darker ones closer to there in the ocean generally. Here's this trench right here. I can see that there's the Peru-Chile Trench. Wow, cool. And the lighter ones are underneath the Andes Mountains here. Which plate is diving under which? Let me think. Joseph was talking about this yesterday. So I think it's, or last session, I guess it was. I think it's the Pacific plate diving underneath the South America plate. That's what I'm going to go for. And let's see, what else have I got here? Is there a pattern? Yes. Oh, so this is all about a presentation using the context of the earthquakes. The presentation allows the creator to sequence the experience and to add in some text. Okay, cool. But how do I do that now? Well, I need to have a map, and I need to think about this in terms of where are we? Let's see. That's my presentation. All I get to do, I got nothing that I can do except kill off this tab. There's no stop and exit. It's just, it is what it is. So let me open up a map. I'm signed in to my account here. There's my account. So just like you can do, you can be making a map. I've got my 3 places. What's this? This is my native home, the Twin Cities. Yeah, you betcha. Here is my work home, Esri headquarters. And what do we got here? Here's my desk and my sock drawer. Okay, so I've got 3 places here. And look what happened. When I saved this map, you can tell because I've named it, I saved it, and what shows up is I can create a presentation. So I'm going to go through this process and create a presentation. Slides. Let's see. I click the plus button to add a new slide. Add. Okay, so my 3, hey, it's showing up there. 3 places. And if I say, great, how do I get a carriage return here for those of us who are from the typing generation, typewriter? Maybe if I hit enter and start typing, twin, okay, that's how it works. Yep. It only, if I want a carriage return, if I want a new line, hit enter. Twin Cities, Redlands, Arlington. Okay, maybe I'll add in here. Oh, how do I just climb back up and add in there. Redlands, California, Twin Cities. Okay, that's Minnesota. Okay. And I think I would like a slightly different base map here. I like the National Geographic base map. I like that one. And I'm going to have the map notes showing. So maybe I want to have a new slide. How do I get a new slide? Well, maybe I just well, if I set this one, I want this one to show there. If I add a new slide, I saw Joseph pointing here for a second. Add a new slide. So I want to show the world, except now I got to be zoomed out. So here's my world. Oh, can I edit this? Yes, my world. I'm going to edit this. All right, great. Except I don't want my map notes on. Maybe I do want them on. Can I turn one of them on? No, I've got one layer of map notes. They're either all on or they're all off. But can I change the, I want to have maybe the oceans base map. I like that. You know what I'm going to do? If I click on these guys, here comes my native home. And I see over here that I can include this as open when the slide comes up. So that if I go to my list and I go to this slide and then this slide, oh, I screwed up here. I guess I need to edit this page. So I hit the pencil and I want to say my world now, set this one to current. Now it's saying, okay, that's my current map extent. So now my slide list, except, I'd really like to have this one be the topmost slide. So I got my world first and I can test this. Here's the play button. So let's test this. Save this presentation. I have unsaved changes. Yes. save that presentation. Okay. Now it's playing in a new tab. Here's my world. There's my native home. Cool. I can play Magellan, and there's my home again. It's still got a selected item there, and I've got 2 slides here. So what are my 3 places? There they are. And if I go back, there's my native home, and forward, there I've got it. So this is not a very exciting presentation, but somebody could walk through, here are the 3 places of my life that are of significance for me, and I could send this off to somebody. So here, I've saved this. I can tell because my little floppy disk icon says it's been saved. And how do I get back to the map if I really wanted to add one more place? How do I get back to the map? Edit the map. Okay, I'm in editing the map mode. There's one more place. I like to go diving. I like to go scuba diving. I like to go diving. There's a tiny little island here just off Maui. I can't really see it unless I swap the base map, get the oceans layer. Ooh, see that tiny little island? That's a great one. I'm going to add one more map node in here. I'm going to add a little push pin. And just like Kylie walked me through, I'm going to change to, it's a pretty one. I'll be underwater. I don't know if there's a scuba place, but it's really, and this is my diving home. All right. And now let's zoom back so I can, okay. Now I've got 4 items. So now what I need to do is to stop editing and save this. So I've got those 4 places. Now I got to go back to my presentation. And now this is great. I'll be able to start this way, and it shows my 4th presentation. And here are my 3 places that I spend most of my waking hours during the year. All right, this is pretty cool. I'm ready. And that's the process of building a presentation. You've got to have a map. I've got no way to add in anything that wasn't on the map. There's no go out and grab a video and grab anything. It's in the map, or you don't get to play with it in your presentation except for the words. So what we're going to do is now I'm going to pass this along. I'm going to say I'm through all these elements here. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And I'm going to turn it over to Tom and Joseph.
Thanks, Charlie. I think Joseph's got some slides he's going to start up for us.
Absolutely. Tom and I are going to start with saving a web map, specifically from a GeoInquiry, and building a map presentation. So this will extend what Charlie was just doing with you all. Take it away, Tom.
So we're going to use the web map that is associated with Where Does the Water Go? It's in the Elementary GeoInquiry collection. So Joseph's going to go ahead and launch the web map. And part of what we really want you to understand here is that you can build presentations based on maps that maybe you didn't build. So Joseph's now looking at a web map from a GeoInquiry. He doesn't own this map. And in fact, at the moment, Joseph's not signed in even, right? So he's just using this map as a general part of his activities related maybe to this GeoInquiry. In order to make this into a presentation, first we're going to save a copy of this map. So Joseph's going to need to sign in with his account. And I believe Joseph's going to use his account on the K-12 mapping hour organization. So for those of you with accounts from the mapping hour, you can do the exact same thing Joseph's doing. Joseph has a publisher level account in the mapping hour, just like all of you. The reason that's important is because one of these buttons that just appeared above the map is specific to the type of account, the publisher level account or better that Joseph has, and that is the analysis button. But because he's now logged in, he has access to that save pull down. So in the middle of his screen, you'll notice that he can now save as.
Ooh.
So the curiosity here is that when Joseph does a save as, he's also gathering some metadata that was attached to the original map. Information or metadata like title, tags, as well as a summary. And of course, at the bottom, as Joseph's saving this copy of a map, he can select where he wants to save it. For today, we can just leave it in the home folder and he can just hit Save Map. Now let's take a quick look at the map and see what we actually have saved, right? So you'll notice in that submenu where Joseph's cursor currently is, there's 3 buttons. There's About, which gives us a little bit of metadata, some of which we just saw. Next to that, of course, is Content, and next to that is Legend. That About pane lets us jump from the map to the map details page. Joseph, would you go ahead and launch that map details page for us? So every map and every piece of data, really everything stored in ArcGIS Online has a details page. Now they might look a little different from item to item, but essentially that item's title is in the blue bar and then the metadata about the item is beneath it. So the summary again appears, the description appears. Joseph, how do we know that you own this particular copy of the map?
Ooh, good question. There's a couple ways that we can determine that. First of all, in the middle there, it's got web map by J. Kursky K12. That's my account that I'm using right now. Secondly, over in the lower right, there is an owner zone, and it's got my name in there as well. It's also got the folder in there. Tom, I never metadata I didn't like.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a look at the map again.
So how do I do that? One of the easy ways to do that is to open the map viewer. And folks, I've canceled my video so you don't see my fingers typing in the way of the camera.
So now that Joseph has made a copy of the map, we can begin to do some interesting things with it. And you saw some of this with Charlie a few moments ago, but we can add data. Of course, we can always change the base map, but we've also got options to now share the map, which we'll go into a bit more later on in this hour. See, directions, I think, was already enabled for us, as was measure and bookmarks. So we've got a couple of essential tools that have been added. One thing to be aware of is now that Joseph saved a copy of this map to his account, what he's really saved is a recipe for creating this map. So what that means is that Joseph hasn't actually saved the data layers for this map to his account, but rather he's saved the way the data layers are put together to make the map, really kind of a configuration or a recipe. So what that means is that, and we'll see more about this later in this hour, but next hour as well, if something happens to one of the underlying data layers, which may be owned by somebody else, it may have an effect on his copy of the map. Again, we'll talk more about that later. For now, let's take a look at how to turn this map that Joseph owns into a presentation. Joseph?
You betcha. Thanks, Tom. This will build on what Charlie walked you through a moment ago. We're just going to extend that just a little bit to get you further into this really simple but powerful means of doing a couple things. One of the things that we wanted to do is, okay, these layers are inside a GeoInquiry, as you know. And so you can save, as we just did, these GeoInquiries, the maps that are associated with them, to your own account inside ArcGIS Online. And so can your students create a presentation from it. Why would we do that? We'll talk about that in a moment. Charlie led us down that path a bit. We'll expand on that in a bit. So if I create presentation, first of all, I want to see what layers I've got. I've got the watershed profiles. What are these? Ooh, I've got a mind here to instruct my students on what is a watershed and why does watersheds actually matter? How is it associated with elevation, precipitation? So I've got these watershed profiles. I've got the watershed boundaries, and I've got some elevation zones. I love this way that these elevation zones are colored. It kind of reminds me of those big wall maps that many of us had. I may be dating myself a bit. From the wall, you'd pull those down, but those are wonderful to show elevation and how it's related to watersheds. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a presentation. And the nice thing about many of these tools is that, hey, you've made some changes. I don't remember making any changes. Well, I've clicked on maybe a layer that wasn't the default, and I've also changed a little bit of the metadata that Tom was walking us through. So yes, let me save this first. And so it's going to keep saving it in this title at the top. That is the map that I'm working with right now. And just as Charlie walked you through a moment ago, we're going to now create a presentation. I've already saved it, so I can go ahead and proceed without saving at this point. Okay, so now we're in the builder mode inside the ArcGIS Online platform. And as you saw with Charlie, I'm going to go ahead and add a slide. I'm going to make this a very simple 3-slide presentation. The first one is I'm going to title this one USA Watersheds. Okay, and I'm going to adjust it not to ignore our colleagues in Alaska and Hawaii, but I'm going to keep it to 48. And I'm going to set that to current. I like the content that's in there right now. Then, as you saw with Charlie, we're going to add another slide. And we're going to call this one, look down below here, I've got the layers. And these are exactly the layers that the person creating this map for the GeoInquiry showed in their map. So that's why we have these available. I'm going to go ahead and look at elevation zones and the watershed boundaries in this one. So now I'm going to call this watersheds and elevations. Okay, great. And I like that. So I'm going to set that current map extent as well. As you work through this, I think another powerful thing is I'm going to zoom in on where I'm located right now. I'm in a really fascinating part of the world because I've got a lot of watershed divides near me here in Colorado. Every river in Colorado flows away from Colorado, so that's one of the things I want to teach students. Where does the water flow? Which is exactly the point of this whole lesson. And so now in this one, I'm going to call it Colorado Watersheds. Awesome. And set the current to the extent here. Okay. And you know what? Let's go ahead and do this just as a last bit. Denver, Colorado. Ooh, okay. And now I've got, that's great. That is awesome. Now, as we can go ahead and say, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, why do I see, when I zoom in, notice that certain things disappear? Remember that visibility extent that we talked about in a couple sessions ago? That's why it's showing up like that. So I'm good with the current extent. And notice I've got this. So if I look at that's the South Platte. What is this HUC? Again, pay attention to the data. This is hydrologic unit code. This is from the EPA, and it's where we got the data for the watersheds. And notice, remember how Kylie was walking you through this the other day? You've got a couple of different pop-ups here. I've got the elevation range because I've got 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and 3 of 3. Interesting. Oh, look at this. If I scroll on the left side, it says pop-up. Include open pop-up in the presentation. So I'm going to check that, set to current, and now I have, let's go ahead and save. Now, Charlie mentioned the floppy disk. Does anybody have a floppy disk in their home, maybe as a museum piece? It's interesting how a lot of software has the floppy disk still has the save button. Okay, let's go ahead and play this now and see what we've got. Okay, we've got a couple of things in here. We've got 2 slides. I must not have saved that intermediate slide because I've got 2 slides in here. But remember, we can go back and edit it. I've got the USA watersheds, and then I've got the Colorado watersheds. Notice that that pop-up appears there, and that's exactly because we specified we want the pop-up to appear. If I go back to this presentation mode, one last thing that Tom and I wanted to show you all in here is under options here, ooh, we've got an auto advance. So let's go ahead and say, you know, after 3 seconds, and I also want to show the legend on all slides, I want to run it that way. So let's go ahead and save it with the auto advance. Why would you do this? Maybe in a science fair or running in a kiosk in front of your school. And so see, I'm not touching the keyboard right now. I know you're not seeing my video, but I'm not touching it at all. And it's going to replay it as it says here. After 10 seconds, it's going to replay it again. I only have 2 slides in here, so it's pretty brief. But you can set, as you saw, the timing for that. Okay? So one last thing before we leave this topic entirely, we wanted to show you this ever so briefly to get you thinking about, hey, why would you do this? Well, I got this idea from Charlie in his blog that we'll show you in a bit. But let's say a set of students worked on a GeoInquiry for 15 minutes or so. Then they build presentations for the next short block of time. Then they share with their peers, maybe their neighbors, or they could present to the whole class. So what we're saying is, you creative folks out there watching this probably have many other ideas of how you can use this, but keeping it pretty simple for now, your presentation therefore serves as an assessment tool, right, for the instructor. It also can foster sharing, communication, etc. skills, and probably most importantly, foster understanding of, hey, what did we just do? What did we learn about in terms of watersheds and why it matters and where the water flows? And the point that Charlie makes, I think, really well in his blog is the time-consuming part, creating the map, adjusting it, exploration, is already done. So here you can focus on the why. Why does it matter? What does it all mean? Okay? Last few bits here that we wanted to demonstrate. And Charlie will have more in a bit. But here is an example of a presentation that I frequently give. I give it in the map presentation mode. Why GIS matters to education and society. So I walk people through this, and sure, I still use Prezi and PowerPoint and Sway and other presentation modes, but oftentimes I use this because, as you can see, it's tied to a map. Another one that I have that I frequently show as sort of a attention-getting device is this weird Earth. So I've got things in there, and you saw how you get that pop-up to show. So different places around the planet and why they're kind of strange, our fascinating planet. Another one that I use, and just as an illustration, is something called Name That Place. And this is a multiple choice quiz. So coming back to this slide, or this zone, it's the metadata zone, right, folks? And inside here, I actually have the instructions of how the teacher or parent could actually use this particular one. This particular one I have embedded. And I have it inside a story map. We're going to have more on story maps later on, but you can see on the right-hand side here, it's, okay, here's the quiz. Is this Victoria Falls, Angel Falls, or Niagara Falls? So look at the vegetation, the orientation of the waterfall, and so on. So I've got all kinds of different quizzes to get people thinking spatially and thinking about urban rivers, volcanoes, etc. Okay? How do you embed it? Well, Charlie's going to talk more about resources at the end, but our colleague Bernd Sokolsky's got a nice blog about how do you embed a presentation inside a web page, inside, in my case, a story map. And this is Bernd's blog. Again, Charlie will have that at the end of our session today. And also he'll have a link to his own presentation on presentation power. Excellent. All right, back over to you, Tom.
I think we're finished here. I think actually it's time for Kylie to tell us a little bit about scenes.
Cool.
All right. Sounds good to me. Let me go ahead and share my screen now. All right. So right now what we're looking at is we've jumped on in to an Arcgis online organization page. Now this is a different one than you saw Charlie using and Joseph using. And the reason I chose to do that, I'll explain in a little bit. But everyone might be in different orgs. You might have gotten your login to follow through this course in a different way, but the things I can do within that organization are the same. Now, I'm not signed in right now. Anyone could go to this page and see some of these resources. And I want to show you something a little bit different than they've been doing, but building on the same concept of presentations. We've been focusing a lot on the map, right? And we've gone up here and we've clicked map. Right next to it is scene. Now, you saw a little bit about this in one of the sessions. What's a scene? Well, the map is that flat paper map that you have on your desk. And the scene, on the other hand, is a globe. Oh, my browser has been helpful and logged me in, so I'm going to go ahead and sign out again just so we keep that same experience. So now here I am, and I'm going to go on into the scene, and hopefully it doesn't sign me in again. Perfect, it didn't this time. So now we can see this globe, and we can see some choices of things we might open to look at on this scene. I don't want any of those, I just want to play, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Now, like you saw in the first day, you can use this just like you do the other maps. I can navigate around, I can zoom in, I can zoom out, very similar. But I don't want to do those things right now. I'm interested in presentations. Now, what can I do in a 3D world, similar to those presentations that were being made in the 2D world? So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and sign in, because to get access to some of these tools to create the content, I will need to be logged in, even though I can explore without it. So this time my browser is being helpful, gives me my credential information, I can sign in a click, and here we are again on a scene. Now you see I get my similar choices, but a little different. It's adding in a scene here because I recently viewed it. It's also giving me the ability to create a new one. Now I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll create a new scene. And look what's opened. We have a designer tab over here, okay? And I could add layers like we've done in the map. I'm not going to worry about too much of that right now because I'm interested in sharing information. And the way we've been talking about that today is through presentations. Check it out. I've got a slides. So I'm going to go ahead and click there. And very similar to the other experience, the words might be a little different, the buttons in slightly different places, but it's the same tools that you were getting familiar with in the 2D world. So in here, I can capture a slide. Now, I want to go ahead first, and similar to what we've seen is just a couple slides in this presentation. So first, I'm going to center over the United States, and I'm going to go ahead and capture that slide. And we'll go with the USA. Now, in my presentation, something I've noticed as I've had the fun of working with Charlie, with Tom, with Joseph, we all kind of like to go outside. And the number of different files of places we've explored is kind of fun. Now, in this group, we're all based in different places. I'm actually near Redlands, near Esri's headquarters. And I have a favorite place to go near me. Now, I like to go run on the trails there. I know Charlie would probably want to go hike on them. And Joseph may be found out there on a bike or maybe on his feet. We're not really sure. But he'd be having fun in these same trails. But they're trails. And so elevation is a part of the story and information I want to share. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use the search here. And I'm going to type the name of this park. Luckily for me, it has a very unique name. And so when we just type it, we'll actually see a result for it. And I can go ahead and click that result, and I'm taken right to that park. Now, the first thing they're going to need to know is where it is. So I'm just going to go ahead and capture a slide like this so that I can share with them where the park is. But this is about elevation, right? So that's not the only thing I want to show them. In a 3D, I can actually pan and rotate in 3D. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that tool for the next part of my presentation. And look, here we go. Looks a little bit flat, even though those of us familiar know these are probably mountains just based on the shading and the lines. But look, as I turn it, how obvious it becomes. So there are some great trails. You can head right up this canyon. There's other ones over here. You can even run along this ridge and see the lights over the city. Great place to explore. But I want them to be aware when they come here, there's going to be some elevation. So I'm done with my presentation here, and I'm going to go ahead and say done, because I think those slides will capture what I really want them to know. And then next time they come to Redlands to come to headquarters and do some work, maybe they'll get to go check out some trails I've really enjoyed. So I'm going to go ahead and save this scene. All right, I can give it some information. And since we're exploring a particular place, I'm going to go ahead and use that name. I can put in a summary. And again, this is all metadata. And while that may not mean much, in the next session, it will really start to make sense. So I'm going to go ahead and tag it. We'll go with mapping hour as well. And here we go. I'm ready now. And I'm go ahead and I can save it. Great. Now I could send a link to this to Charlie, to Joseph, to Tom, and they can come see one of my favorite places. So I'm going to go over here And there's a tool here for sharing. If I click that, I'm going to see some options. Now, the first one I want to point out is this great URL. When you're sharing a URL, you can usually capture what's in the browser address bar right at the top here. This big, long thing. It has something about web scene. It has web scene again. It has this really big, messy looking info. That's a lot. And in a presentation like this, if I was going to say, try to tell that to you, maybe I want to send it to you in a text message. I don't want to type all of that. So instead, these give you a nice short URL. You can copy this right here by clicking copy to clipboard. It'll grab it for you, or you can just select it, copy it, however you want to get it. So I can take that link now and I can send it to Joseph. Now, Charlie, I notice you're not muted, so I'm going to pick on you for a second. If I send you that link right now, would you click on it?
I would be likely to.
Yeah. And guess what would happen?
Well, I don't know. Is it publicly accessible?
Exactly. So that's the next thing I want to jump us into is some sharing. So with this link, you can notice there's some information right here. This scene is not shared with the public. People might not be able to view it. Well, I want Charlie and Joseph and Tom to be able to view it. I don't want to send them a link that when they click on it, it gives them a dead page, because we all know how much fun those kinds of links are. So before I send this link, I need to make sure I change my share settings. Now, since we're members of an organization, this is going to take us to another page. And you saw this earlier. And you hear it called the map details or the item page. These are some terms that refer to this. It's basically the information or metadata about that thing I just created. In this case, using those tools we learned from Joseph, we can see it's a web scene and it was created by me with this account. And there's some share options over here. Now, when I click on that, I get some different options here. I'm going to focus on these top choices right now. Group sharing is something we're going to get to in a later episode, so just don't worry about it right now. But let's look at these because there's a lot of power right here. Now, being that Charlie, Joseph, Tom, and I work together, we're often have credentials and logins in the same organization. So for that case, I could check this option of share with my organization. Now Charlie, Tom, and Joseph can see it. Oh, but what about you guys? What if you wanted to open it? What if you want to see it? Or what if I wanted to send a link to my mom and share my favorite trails with her? Well, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and pick the everyone public option. Now, there's a little bit of hidden power in this one. One thing you may not notice is it's everyone public. It doesn't say everyone who's a member of an organization. So with this link, I could send it, like I mentioned, to my mother. She doesn't have any accounts in here, as much as she loves the mapping stuff I do. But she'd be able to go look at this map. So that's something to keep in mind. When you go public, anybody in the world can see it. It's not limited to people with logins. It's not limited to your organization. It's not limited to just you. So you have some choices here about the granularity at which you share this item. And it's something to think through is who might need access? Who do I not want to have access? Because that can be another important component. All right, so we've gone ahead, we've set that, and we'll go ahead and save it. Our item's updated and our sharing is changed. You can see here, our sharing was updated. Great. Now, I want to jump to something else really quick to highlight a little bit more about the sharing. Because in this case, we looked at it through a scene, and we came into it through that share button on the side. And at the very beginning of this, I started talking a little bit about how some of these tools look a little different, but you can do the same things. Well, the share experience is one of those tools. So I'm going to jump over here to a next tab. That's our org homepage where the map button is. And in this case, I've actually gone ahead and opened a map that I made in this organization. In this case, it's a map of favorite colors. And I allowed a bunch of people to add their favorite colors to my map, and it's been really cool. And I've shared this with them. I've shown them this content. So it's already shared, and I bet you can guess how, right? If everybody can access it, I've shared it publicly. And I can see that for this map, or maybe I need to change it. Maybe I'm done wanting people to add their colors, and I want to hide it from everyone and just be able to use it in my own reports. I don't, but if I did, I could change the sharing later. And in here, the share button looks a little bit different. So you can see right next to the save, we have that share. And I'm going to go ahead and click on that so you can see the slightly different experience. But what's really important is I actually have the same options in here. They just look different. Now, you can see that everyone public option, and you can see this longer option. Now, that's the organization name of which I'm a member. So this everyone public is the same as the everyone before. And this is the same as sharing with my organization. And this is sharing with groups. And again, we'll get into that later. Now, if I wanted it to be private, well, just don't share it with anyone. Just go ahead and turn that off. Now, I want to make sure not to do that because I'm using this map right now. But that gives you a look at the other way you can see this experience. Now, perhaps I didn't want to change the sharing through here or those options just being different. I just don't quite get them as well. And I want to go to that familiar experience. Well, the other thing I'm going to show you quickly is from how from a 2D map, you can go to About, which we've talked about, and see some information. But one of the important links for me in here is this More Details. When I click on that link, a new tab opens. And in this tab, we're going to see that same item page or map details page that shows this is a web map, not a scene because it's flat, right? It's the flat paper version. Who made it? And here we are back to our normal share button. And if I was to use this share button, I get my more familiar options again. So there are a couple different ways that I can share the content, but what's really important here is that we can create presentations in maps and in scenes. We can share maps and scenes, as well as all kinds of other content. And we'll explore that more later, but that's really powerful, right? Because the most interesting, coolest map I make, to me, I see maps as a communication tool. And if I can only show that to myself, or I have to be there, as Charlie mentioned earlier, and open it with them, well, that kind of dulls that power a little bit. Whereas now, that's no longer the case. I can share these things, and then I can send it to them and communicate this information with them through the content that I've made. All right, so I think that's about all I have to share on this today. And I'm going to turn it back over to Charlie now.
Hey, Kylie, this is Joseph. One of the things that what had come to mind when you were sharing that creating the 3D scenes is if a person really wanted to teach about watersheds like Tom and I were exploring. Oh my gosh, making a 3D scene and showing how the rivers nest inside the watersheds could be really powerful.
Yeah, and that's a great example how in playing with these tools and this content, we might find one thing and start one way, and then have this realization as we explore maybe content someone else made and shared with us that makes us realize how much more we can do.
Wow, what a great session. What a really powerful set of descriptions, presentations, small p presentations of what it is that people can do. You know, one of the things that we get asked a lot is, if I'm teaching something with these tools, how do I get to know if the students are getting something out of it? How do I understand if the students are understanding the pieces that we have been working through? And the best thing is to just have them create something, put together a presentation, put together a scene with a set of slides, have them present to each other, have them present to the whole class, have them present it out to the public. You always have to be careful about what it is that you're going to be sharing out with the public, and we'll be talking more about that in some of the later episodes, because sharing is one of those. It's a power with as some of our friends know. With great power comes something, responsibility or something like that. Great responsibility, perhaps. So the reason for getting people to explore how to do a tool, this is one of my favorite activities here, is to, here's an expose. I've got a new tool that I've just discovered. I want to play with it. Play with these tools first. Play with them just to explore what it is that they can do and see, and then start thinking about the ways that you can use them in some of the work. What we run into frequently is that a lot of people say, great, I have my full big project that I want to know how to do everything about that project right away. That's really hard to do. What we want to encourage people to do is to get in and play with these tools, see what they can do, experience them, explore with them, and then start thinking about, okay, now let's start accomplishing work. That's the magic of that whole GeoInquiry into a presentation zone. I've watched teachers do this in class where they spend 10 minutes working with the GeoInquiry as a class. They spend 10 or 15 minutes with the students building presentations. They spend 15 minutes or so presenting what they've created to each other. It's often been said that you learn things best when you have to teach it to somebody else, and to have the students turn around and say, here's what I learned out of this activity. And what I learn out of it may be very different from what other people learn out of it. And I'm going to say, ooh, you learned something cool out of that I didn't really think about. That's a really important part for the people who are working on this. So, all right, with that, let me see if I can share my screen. All right, let's review. We had map viewer presentations, great tools, undersung tools. One of the pieces that's really exciting about that is that for a teacher with a confined period of time in a class, is all I can work with is what we've got in the map. I don't have to worry about people going off and getting lost, going down some rabbit hole somewhere and exploring. And with slides, I can bring in all kinds of capacity inside those slides, show a whole series of content. These slides and presentations can be combined in some other elements that we're going to be getting to, as Joseph was mentioning, the story maps. You got to see saving content, both content created by other people and built by you, and then sharing that content. And the nice, neat, short URL that will get somebody to it very quickly, or the long URL that has more meat to it for you to understand. We're going to be paying attention to those along with this whole notion of item details and metadata tomorrow. But so these skills, these concepts are really essential ones that you're going to be working with over and over and over again. Part of the magic that we talk about with GIS is create, save, share. The creation is very powerful. It takes a long time. Other people are doing it as well. What's really important is to be able to save that, come back to it again, edit it, make it better and better and better, and then share it out with everybody else. Share it, take advantage of the content that other people are creating. So, what resources do we have for practicing what you've gone through here? There's a GeoInquiry story map from which you can get access to where do I go to find all these GeoInquiries, how can I think about teaching with them, all kinds of guidance there. There's the Fun with GIS 229 is the blog that Joseph mentioned that's walking through that watershed, where does the water go? If you need some more guidance there, that will walk you sort of step by step through the process of creating a presentation out of a GeoInquiry. Inside the mapping hour zone, you'll find access to the previous videos. If you saw something here and we talked about something that didn't quite make sense, maybe you want to go back and review. Or if you still don't have a login, you're just coming in, you got to see this one and you need a login, go to the mapping hour, do the survey, and request your login. We've got some classic resources that we've been using for years to help people get into working with this, and the ArcGIS Online Skill Builder, esriurl.com/AGO Skill Builder is a nice, neat, simple little tool that will let some people see a thumbnail, read a couple of sentences, and go click on something to do. So that document is helpful for some people that just want to learn very quickly or jump to a skill. And Joseph brought up a blog by one of our faves inside of Esri, one of our favorite wizards, Bernie Sokolsky. He's got a very powerful blog, and you can see Bernie's and a lot of other people's blogs here at the ArcGIS blog. Go take a look at it. It's a great blog to explore if you want some ideas, you want some background knowledge on some of these things. Here's the direct link to the blog that Joseph mentioned about authoring and sharing a map presentation. Powerful blog. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining us. Well, maybe not it for today if you're binge watching some of these. So that's it for episode number 4 out of 20. So join us again. Thanks a lot.
See you next time.
See ya.
Bye.